Good morning, or good whatever time you are watching/listening to this at. My name is Jessica Buchanan Carlin, and this is my Pecha Kucha for EPSI 330, titled More Than a Diagnosis: What Born Lucky Teaches Us About Going Beyond a Label. The why. I chose this book because as a teacher, I am very interested in continuously learning about how labels impact students in the classroom. I want to understand how expectations from adults, especially teachers and parents, can either limit students or push them to reach their full potential. Overview of Born Lucky. This book follows Leland's life after being diagnosed with autism, focusing heavily on his father's role. His dad pushed him to build independence, social skills, and resilience, often in challenging ways. The story shows how much influence family and environment have on outcomes. The title Born Lucky reflects Leland's belief that his luck came from his father's mindset. He wasn't lucky because of circumstance, but because someone believed in him and refused to let his diagnosis define what he could achieve. A major theme is labeling in this novel. When someone is diagnosed, expectations often shift. This connects to schools where labels can unintentionally lower expectations and shape how students are treated rather than focusing on their strengths and potential. One idea that challenged me was the belief that Leland should adapt to the world rather than the world adapting to him. In education, we emphasize inclusion, but this made me reflect on the importance of also teaching independence and real-world coping skills. Leland's parents chose not to tell others about his diagnosis to avoid limiting expectations. While this may have helped him socially, it raises concerns about access to support and whether hiding a diagnosis might prevent necessary accommodations in school settings. Role of the family. His father played a central role in his success, constantly pushing him and supporting him emotionally. This shows how powerful family advocacy can be, but also highlights that not all students have access to that level of support. Emotional support. Leland's father often took on the emotional load when he struggled, allowing him to process frustration safely. This made me think about how teachers also support students emotionally and how important those relationships are for student success. What really stood out was how much his father sacrificed. Advocacy can be exhausting and difficult. This raises equity concerns because not all families have the time, knowledge, or the exact same resources to advocate in the same way. Negative school experience. Leland's experience with a grade 8 teacher showed how harmful educators can be when they lack understanding. This reinforced for me that teachers have a huge responsibility in shaping how students see themselves and their abilities. The major message I got from the novel Born Lucky is discipline, learning to embrace the suck and push through challenges. While this builds resilience, it also made me reflect on how educators need to balance pushing students while still being responsive to their needs that they have. High expectations. The book emphasizes holding students accountable to high standards. This really resonated with me because inclusive education should not mean lowering expectations, but instead providing the right support so students can meet those expectations that we place. One powerful idea is that self-esteem is earned, not given. Leland built confidence through overcoming challenges. This challenges some educational approaches and suggests that growth and effort are essential for developing real confidence. Leland was taught to focus on what he could control: his actions, work ethic, and character. This is an important life skill, especially for students with autism who may struggle with unpredictability in their environment. One strength of this book is its honesty and real-life perspective. It offers hope and shows what is possible while also highlighting the importance of strong relationships, high expectations, and consistent support in shaping outcomes. However, the approach in this book may not work for every student. It relies heavily on one highly involved parent, which is not realistic for all families, and it may oversimplify the complexity of autism and support needs and what people have access to. Contribution to autism field. This book contributes to the field by challenging deficit-based views of autism and emphasizing independence and resilience. It adds to conversations about how expectations and support systems shape outcomes for individuals with autism. Impact on me as an educator. This book made me reflect on my future role as a teacher and the role that I have now. Challenged me to think about how I can maintain high expectations, avoid limiting labels, and create a classroom environment that supports both independence and inclusion. Ultimately, Born Lucky reinforced that students should never be defined by a diagnosis. As educators, we have the power to shape how students see themselves, and our expectations can either limit them or they can help them realize their full potential. Thank you so much for listening to my Pecha Kucha on Born Lucky by Leland Verdit. These are my references for the images that I used on each of my slides. Thank you so much for an absolutely wonderful semester.